Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Screenstars and welcome to another classic film review. Today, I'm taking a look at the iconic 1974 horror classic, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The film is co-written and directed by Tobe Hooper and it stars Marilyn Burns, Edwin Neal, Alan Dazinger, Paul A. Partain, William Vale, Ted McKinn, Gunnar Hansen, and Jim Sydow. Right, okay, the film follows a group of teens who are heading out to rural Texas to visit the grave of a relative. On their way, they stumble across what appears to be a house that is deserted. However, it is not deserted at all, and we have a vicious killer called Leatherface and his psychotic family to deal with. Right. What are my thoughts on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Well, just recently, just last week, I reviewed the 2003 version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre as part of my horror remake review series. And after reviewing that, I thought, should I visit the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise? Because there's a lot of films in this franchise I haven't seen. I've seen this one a long time ago. I mean, I'll talk about it a little bit more at length now, but it amazed me just how much of this film I'd actually forgotten in regards to like beats and that kind of stuff. I'd not seen the second and third one. I'd heard they were pretty bad. And other than the remake in 2003, I've not seen any of the others. And apart from the most recent one on Netflix, I think, did it come out in 2022? Which I actually didn't mind that one too much, which was a direct sequel to this film. So it's one of those franchises, again, where the timelines are all over the place, I suppose. So it's kind of put me off a little bit, and I'll be honest, and my personal horror franchise favourite is the Halloween franchise, probably. But I've quite enjoyed any of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre films I've watched. I've just not watched a great deal of them. However, I digress a little bit. What are my thoughts on this film? Well, it is absolutely iconic, this film. It's obviously based on the crimes of Ed Gein, or Ed Gein, whatever you want to call him, to some degree. And the film itself is properly intense, this film. And I forgot that. I think probably I was a much younger man when I first saw this film, and I haven't seen it probably for a good couple of decades. And I do remember it being quite affecting, this film, when I first watched it. And I absolutely understand that now after watching this. And it's a very, very smart film as well, because it's actually one of the least bloody, or I was about to say violent then, but that's not true. But like, there's you don't see any blood really. Very, very little to speak of in this film. If you actually look at it, certainly the 2003 remake, and that's fairly tame by modern standards. Certainly, like when you compare it to things like Terrifier films, tame in comparison. But it doesn't matter. And that's the beauty and the art of this direction and this film. It doesn't need to show you anything. You know exactly what's going on. And it's absolutely bloody terrifying. And that's the one thing I took away from this. I found this much more frightening than the 2003 remake. I think the 2003 remake, because it's so kind of intense all the time, if you like, to a large degree. You don't really... You're almost like in a constant state of fear watching that film, if that makes sense. So you're never out of that emotion. Well, you're not really with this one. And when it starts happening, it's just... There's like a trigger point here in this film, which is for me anyway, that absolutely pushed it over the edge in regards to fear and terror was when Franklin and Sally go looking for everybody in the dark, and he's obviously in a wheelchair, and he springs out of nowhere, Leatherface, and it's just like screaming non-stop, chainsaw non-stop, and the only time you get a breather is when we are introduced to this absolutely batshit family who are cannibals, and I think that's something this gets it much better, I think, than the 2003 remake is like the family here. In the 2003 remake, it focuses more on like a community, I suppose. It only really hints at cannibalism, whereas this one, it slaps you across the face with the cannibalism sort of thing. And, this family is absolutely bonkers. And it's very, very intense, I found. I think the performance by Marilyn Burns as Sally was, outstanding, really. She must have been she probably needed therapy when she finished this film, because she was just, like I say, in a constant state of fear, terror, and shock throughout this film. It's got some iconic moments here, obviously, with the introduction of Leatherface with the metal door slamming, the charging through the woods, chasing, the bit where she's literally diving through windows to get away from them, regardless of how high up she is. It's just great, really, and it feels so ahead of its time as well. I had to remind myself, this is 1974. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's another time. When I was a kid, I've spoken before about how I used to kind of sneak and watch films like American Werewolf in London, The Thing, Alien, that type of stuff. But there were like 3 films when I was young that were like the Holy Grail that you never got a chance to see. And that was Evil Dead, The Exorcist, and this, and Clockwork Orange as well. Even though I know that's not horror. And, you were like, how do I watch this film? So it's, people talked about it in the school playground and stuff when I were at secondary school, and, I saw this last night, and I saw that last night. Oh, I saw Texas Chainsaw. How did you watch that? Oh, I watched, someone got me a videotape of it, and, and it took a long time for me to be able to see the film. And I thoroughly enjoyed it when I did. But it's almost like it could never ever live up to the expectations that had been laid down by all those years of people bigging it up in the playground or that kind of stuff. I remember feeling a little bit underwhelmed the first time I watched this. And then I watched it probably another couple of times over the next few years, sort of thing. And then a massive gap before I watched it again. But watching it now, if you like, with mature eyes and looking at it from a different perspective, you can see how clever this film is. Very, very smart, because it's obviously a low budget. It's been made very, very smartly to absolutely scare the pants off you and make you think you've seen things that you haven't actually seen. It just presses a button in your imagination, and your imagination just runs wild with it. It's a very, very clever film, in my opinion, this. And also, one of the most controversial characters, I think, in horror, in any horror franchise, and that's Franklin, the chappie in the wheelchair. I forgot how bloody annoying he was. And he was properly annoying. Now, I don't know how... I can't honestly say how they were pitching this. At times, when I was rewatching this, I'm thinking, are they pitching this that he's got disabilities? I don't mean physical, but, learning disabilities as well as being in a wheelchair. I couldn't quite figure out if that's what they were going for, or if it was just a guy in a wheelchair who's just incredibly annoying. Either way, he is an annoying character, and I don't know if that's what they were going for, but that's absolutely what we got here. So yeah, there's no two ways about it. This is like on the Mount Rushmore of horror films. Massively influential, very enjoyable to watch, and an absolute stone cold classic. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I will probably take a look at some more Texas Chainsaw Massacre films. Not quite sure which one I'm going to watch next. I'm just going to kind of go where the wind takes me rather than watching them in sequence. And that's just my way of getting out of watching the second and third one straight away, because I'm not keen on checking those ones out yet. But I might be wrong. They might be great fun. So thanks for checking out this review, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. And I will, of course, be back with plenty more content on the channel very, very soon.